Stu asked me a few minutes ago, if you could take anything with you, what was the good thing that you would take with you from COVID? And I'm going to get into that because he's got an old list. We're getting into that here in a second. But I want to use air quotes when I use the word positive, because I'm using that positive very, very loosely here. But the one thing I wish we could take along with us is this. We, for the first time, at least in my lifetime, got to see and experience the reality of what so-called authorities really know and what they really believe. And we saw firsthand, they don't believe in you, and they don't know jack squat. They're doing a job, and they're doing the best that they can. Not all of them are bad people. I think that's a bad thing that we have started to label people. Anybody who is part of this, we just assume that everybody is somehow part of an evil, group, or they're doing it intentionally. They're not. A lot of people just don't have any idea what they're doing, and they're doing the best that they can, and they're not part of a global conspiracy. And I do. I mean, it's not lost on me that I'm saying it's not part of a global conspiracy. Anyway, let's just assume for a minute that everyone involved, from Fauci to Trump to Dr. Birx, all of it, people doing the gain of function research on bat coronaviruses, let's give everyone the benefit of the doubt that they're not part of a Soros-Gates globalist conspiracy that used COVID-19 to usher in the Great Reset and control our lives. Okay, it might be true, but let's just pretend it's not for a second. You can leave all those accusations aside because you don't need them. What we need to really recognize and take with us from this is that the so-called authorities have no idea what they're doing. That's the biggest argument against conspiracy theories. You think they could pull this off? They don't know their ass from their elbow. What are you talking about? The people we have put in place exactly for and precisely to manage global human diseases and public health issues were wrong, then wrong again a dozen more times. They built and used models at the very beginning that were wrong, dramatically overestimating the case fatality rate for COVID-19. That led to unnecessary lockdowns. I'm not saying anybody did this, that they were doing their best, but we just didn't know. Then they urged no mask wearing. Then they urged mask wearing. Then they urged 2 or 3 masks. Now I think we're back to no. I don't know where we are on that. The social distancing guidelines of 6 feet or 3 feet for kids, that's entirely made up. Study after study has shown that for the U.S., state by state, and globally, nation by nation, there's no statistical difference in how the virus spread and what the fatality rate was across any given populace. Lockdowns and mask mandates did not impact the spread of the virus. Otherwise, we would have different results now in Texas and Florida, wouldn't we? Now, that just doesn't mean that anyone was bad. It doesn't mean that Fauci or Birx or anybody are bad people. They're doing the best that they could if we give them the benefit of the doubt with the information they had. And given the context of politics and the bureaucracy in D.C. and the media, the mistakes that were made resulted in real negative outcomes, including decimating the U.S. economy and violating so many rights. That's why 60% of Americans are skeptical of the government, their official COVID-19 numbers. About 25% of likely U.S. voters have indicated they don't plan on getting the COVID-19 vaccine. Why? Because we don't really feel like we've had anything that was true. We see other things that are bad like this, but this isn't the bubonic plague. And because we have so overreacted for such a long time, it was fine to overreact for the first month, 2 months. But once we hit summer, we were all kind of looking at it going, okay, I think we know what we have here, and it's not as bad as everybody said. And everybody has made, Fauci into this golden calf that we're supposed to just worship. Now, if the government doesn't have anything going for it on COVID-19, I mean, if they screwed it up this badly on COVID-19, all of the so-called experts, it got so wrong, is there a possibility that they don't have it right other places? Take, for example, 94% of professional Wall Street stockbrokers are bullish, looking at U.S. stocks over the next 12 months. And not to be outdone, but retail investors, mom and pop investors like you and me, are equally committed, with 9.8 long bets for every one short bet. That's 98% of the people think this is going to be great. It's going to be a boom. Usually when everyone's in the boat, it's bad, especially when the stragglers like you and me, we start to glom on. So wait a minute. We just experienced the highest ranked and most powerful government officials. We experienced that they got almost everything wrong with COVID-19, wrong diagnosis of how deadly it was, wrong treatment in face mask lockdown, wrong policies on medical treatments, not protecting our older population with true quarantines for those most vulnerable. But when it comes to the economy and stocks and money printing, we don't really talk about Janet Yellen, Jerome Powell, Joe Biden. Do they have the slightest idea of what they're doing when they are telling us they're doing things that have never been done before? See, I just think that's a problem because you're dealing with the money that we all have in our savings account. Anything that you saved could be gone because they're trying something we've never done before. Now, COVID-19 was something we had never seen in our lifetimes. And look at what the government did. I got news for you. No one has ever seen what's coming in our global financial system either. Listen to these numbers. 64% of all of the new currency created across the entire world in the past 12 months has been U.S. dollars. 64%. The previous one-year high was 14% of all currency was U.S. dollars. 64%. Retail investors made 27% of all U.S. stock trades in Q1. 10 years ago, retail investors accounted for only 5% of total stock trades. So that means if it crashes, you're involved. The Fed has printed currency to buy $2.5 trillion in new government bonds, plus nearly $1 trillion in corporate bonds and ETFs. Prior to the year 2020, the Federal Reserve had never bought any of those things. They had never purchased any of those things, ever, at all. So we have no idea what's going on with the stock market. Every indication shows U.S. stocks are historically overvalued compared to earnings and corporate revenues. There is no precedent ever for the Fed printing more than 25% worth of GDP in new currency and using it to prop up the government and the entire financial sector. Now, much like the lockdowns and the masks and the closed schools, this is just a live experiment that we're just doing, and you're the guinea pig. Effective zero-rate interest for new debt, trillions in new currency digitally printed and used to buy bonds, stocks, keeping companies that Uncle Sam wants to keep afloat, and keeping Uncle Sam afloat. Stocks blown up to the largest asset bubble in human history. But don't worry, the authorities have this. They have it. You know, Fauci may be taking his punches now, but I expect a couple of years from now it's going to be Powell and Yellen. Yeah. Assuming that they have the best intentions. We shouldn't assume they know what they're doing or that they actually have a plan that you or I would agree with. See, the phenomena that I want to take from COVID is the potent director's fallacy. And I'd like to take that because we have recognized it as a fallacy. That our directors know exactly what to do. And this comes from a time of economic expansion, or we win wars or whatever, and people are like, see, they know what they're doing. But once there's trouble, we really see they don't know. I like to call it the Wizard of Oz effect. Don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. Powell, Yellen, Fauci, Biden, they're all behind a curtain. And they're just pulling levers and knobs. They have absolutely no idea what the hell they're doing. And they hope that it works out until Dorothy arrives. Because at the end of the day, we're all going to find out they're nothing but traveling salesmen. That's it. Don't buy what they're hawking.